Veteran wide receiver Jarvis Landry could be looking to make a Louisiana homecoming visiting with the New Orleans Saints. What a signing would mean for the team, Michael Thomas, and the team's draft plan. We got all that and a little bit of lanyard for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into this Wednesday episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube as well. And I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter. USA Today's Saints Wire, Tuesdays on Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by BlueNile.com. This Mother's Day, give mom something that she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners, you're going to get $50 off of $500 by using promo code Locked On at checkout. Former LSU Tiger veteran wide receiver Jarvis Landry is set to visit the New Orleans Saints today. If the New Orleans Saints manage to work out a contract with him, it's a great signing for them, but it doesn't and shouldn't keep them from investing in wide receiver in the NFL draft, and in particular, in the first round. In fact, it potentially gives them the opportunity to take a greater risk. So here's my mantra for the rest of this week. Sign Jarvis, draft Jameson. Very, very simple. Why Jameson Williams in this instance? Well, there are a couple of different ways that you can look at this, right? Signing Jarvis Landry is going to give you somebody on that offensive side for the New Orleans Saints that's going to help to sort of rejuvenate that wide receiver room. We'll break down exactly what the additional quality is that he brings to the receiver room that they lacked last year here in just a moment. But does it solve everything for you to the point to where you can sort of ignore wide receiver again in this draft? I don't think you can. Now, it does give you the opportunity to be able to go with one of those first two selections in the first round, BPA, regardless of position, but I think you should still invest in wide receiver. The reason that I specifically mentioned Jameson Williams is because Jameson Williams would be a perfect complement alongside Michael Thomas and a player like Jarvis Landry, but he might not be available to start the season right away. Signing a guy like Jarvis Landry gives you the insurance that you need to be able to give Jameson Williams time to be able to get back out on the field as he recovers from that very late knee injury that he suffered during the college national championship game, which might have been the difference in that game, honestly, and gives you an opportunity to not rush him back. Let him fully recover. He says that he's well ahead of schedule, but as some of the people who have watched the show, folks that have heard that news, many of us kind of feel like, well, they always say that. So how far along is he really? Only the team will know that. But now, if you were able to find a way to sign a guy like Jarvis Landry, it gives you the opportunity to not have to rush Jameson Williams back out on the field. Now, can you still get a very good wide receiver in the second round? Absolutely. You could still walk away with guys like Sky Moore, potentially Khalil Shakir, even a guy like Christian Watson could still be there. George Pickens could be in the second round. You might have to trade up to grab him, though. But it still gives you a ton of options that you'll be able to choose from in that second round. If you wanted to wait and maybe go BPA regardless of position at both 16 and 19, sure. But I think that a signing like Jarvis Landry gives you an opportunity to really go ahead and invest in a piece that is going to be huge for you in the stretch run. That's going to be huge for you in the playoffs if you're able to get there. And it's going to be huge for you in the back end of a season when you're competing within a pretty much barren NFC conference. That gives you a real opportunity to invest in what would be a long-term weapon and a big-time weapon immediately in your offense once he's able to get out on the field. And the immediacy becomes less of an issue at that point if that's something that deters you originally, because you have Michael Thomas and you have Jarvis Landry, who are very good complements to one another. They've run similar route trees in the past, but Jarvis Landry would allow you to open up Michael Thomas a little bit more and utilize him in all of the different areas where he's impactful. We'll look at route trees and everything here in just a moment. But does this do enough for you to not invest in wide receiver in the draft? No. And again, the Saints may decide that they want to still grab, a big time complementary piece in the first round that can get out on the field immediately, like a Chris Olave, who would be just as good a complement to Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas as well. But man, when it comes down to somebody that's going to be a game breaker for you, that can produce after the catch, that can be a field stretcher, that could be a deep threat, that could just add that element of explosion that this New Orleans Saints offense hasn't really had outside of Deontay Hardy over the course of the past few seasons. There's just no better option out there than Jameson Williams. And Jarvis Landry gives you the insurance if you're able to get a contract and a deal done with him, which we'll also talk about what that contract would look like. It gives you the opportunity to really be able to invest and find a way to bring that guy in to New Orleans in the draft without feeling like you're potentially wasting a selection. So if you went with that at 16, at 19, you can potentially trade up from 19 to go ahead and grab your tackle, stand pat at 16, grab Jameson Williams, trade up to grab Jameson Williams, take the best tackle available at 16. Whatever it is that you want to do, there's a lot of different ways that you'll be able to do it, again, because the New Orleans Saints have a ton of flexibility in this year's draft. And Jarvis Landry, signing him if they can get that done, would only add to that flexibility. Now, what does Jarvis Landry specifically bring your offense that you were missing last year? Let's talk about that next, because one of the things that the New Orleans Saints didn't do very well was move the chains in 2021. Jarvis Landry in 2022 could help to change that if the Saints can get the contract done. We're going to get to that here in just a moment and continue on with the impact of a potential signing for Jarvis Landry. But before we get to that, Mother's Day right around the corner, right after the NFL draft. So I want to tell you about our friends over at BlueNile.com, the original online jeweler. BlueNile.com has all the fine jewelry options that you can find for each and every mom. You can shop for high quality diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, or you can also find gemstone pendant necklaces if that's more the flavor. So you can go ahead and check all of that out over at BlueNile.com. They are awesome. They have 24/7 absolutely legendary service with 30-day returns, a 100% satisfaction guarantee on top of everything. So you can shop stress-free with guaranteed free shipping and returns all covered. And when you commit to a piece, so does Blue Nile, which makes sure that you have guaranteed repair for life as well. So you can upkeep that beautiful piece that you purchase. So go and check it out, because Mother's Day, you want to give your mom something that she's going to treasure forever. You could do that with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners are going to be getting $50 off of a $500 purchase. This podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day, so use promo code Locked On. That's code Locked On, so that you can take advantage of that. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging so that you won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Thanks again, as always, for making us your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, check out that Locked On NFL podcast, as well as the Ultimate Mock Draft 2022 feed for our big network mock draft, where we have all of our experts selecting through the first round, as well as the first picks for all of the teams that select outside of round one. My first pick just came up in today's episode, going with the tackle Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa, looking ahead to pick 19 now. And again, as we mentioned just a moment ago, signing a guy like Jarvis Landry doesn't really impact my draft strategy in terms of what I have gone tackle, what I have gone wide receiver. I think I still would have gone yes and yes. The order of the two kind of depends upon who's on the board, but that made it really easy. By the way, for more draft coverage as well, Locked On NFL YouTube page will have you covered for all 3 days with our live show from the studios in Dallas, Texas. So the next big piece here is that Jarvis Landry, what does he bring you on the field? Well, he gives you a sure-handed receiver that's sure to impact the game in some ways that some of the Saints receivers last year in that receiver room came up short. So let's just look at the last 3 years of stats for Jarvis Landry. We're going to do a quick moment of some box score scouting, and then I'll explain why we're doing this here in just a sec. 52 catches on 87 targets last year, 570 yards, 2 touchdown receptions. Didn't really blow anybody out of the water, but 30 first downs in 12 games. Remember that number. 72 catches on 101 targets for 840 yards, 3 touchdowns in 2020, 46 first downs in 2020. And then in 2019, 55 first downs in 16 games, 83 catches on 138 targets, 1,174 yards, 6 touchdowns. Now, that last stat line in 2019 is not what you would expect from Jarvis Landry if you were to sign him here in 2022 to be in this New Orleans Saints offense. But that 2020 line, 72 catches, 840 yards, 3 touchdowns, maybe not too far out of range. I think you probably back it up a little bit and then go somewhere more like 60 catches, around 700 something yards, and a few touchdowns. But one of the things that I think is really important is his ability to move the chains. 30 first downs last year in 12 games, 46 first downs the year before in 15 games, 55 first downs in 16 games in 2019. Let's just compare that to what the wide receiving core for the New Orleans Saints was last year, and the first down receptions that they brought in amongst your 3 reception leaders at the position, right? Not Alvin Kamara, who's a running back, just that wide receiver. Marquez Callaway, 32 first downs. Deontay Hardy, 23 first downs. And then Traquan Smith, 18 first downs. So Jarvis Landry would have been second on this team, might have been able to play more games, certainly would have seen more targets than just 87 in the 12 games that he played if he was in New Orleans. Remember, Michael Thomas wasn't a part of the offense last year. So I think that that's one of the things that he really gives you. The other piece that he gives you is some separation. 3.0, so 3 yards of separation per route last year, run in 2021. Saints receivers last year, Deontay Hardy, 3.6. Was the only one above him. Marquez Callaway, 2.8, and Traquan Smith at 2.4, and an Adam Troutman was down there as well. So he gives you somebody that would have been second on your team in first down receptions if you just immediately translated his stats from the last year with the Cleveland Browns to the New Orleans Saints. And if you would have just taken that and sort of carbon copied it as well, then you end up with a guy that's also second on your team in terms of separation. Here's the other piece, though. 3 yards of separation per route run is not terrible, but it's also not great. However, contested catch situations is a place where Jarvis Landry continues to shine. He had 12 contested catch situations last year out of those 52 catches, out of those 87 targets. He caught 8 of those passes. That's 66.7% of his catches he was able to make under those contested catch situations. So then he also has a 52.3 career contested catch percentage as well, which puts him right at the top of all of the other guys on this New Orleans Saints roster. So he's somebody that's would have been giving you the second most in terms of separation, would have been giving you the most first downs picked up as well, or second most first downs picked up, 5 yards after the catch per catch throughout 2021 as well. And he gives you somebody that can make some contested catch situations and make some catches in contested catch situations, So I think that those are the additional elements that he brings you in terms of being able to help move the chains, being able to help extend drives, being able to help pick up tough yardage, all of those things, because he is somebody that runs a lot of slants, that runs a lot of dig routes, out routes, things like that. This New Orleans Saints offense absolutely loves in their receivers, and he gets a lot of success in all of those areas of the game as well. We'll break down route tree and all here in just a sec, but one of the other things that I just want to highlight about what he brings to your team is versatility. Over the course of the past 3 seasons, 2021, 20, and then 19, you end up seeing here that over the course of those years, he ran 56.4% of his snaps from the slot, over 1,000, over 1,200, and then 43.6% out wide. So he was nearly an even split in terms of running routes from inside and outside. So he gives you that versatility that you really like on the offensive side as well, whether you're going 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field, and then you're going with those 2 receiver sets where you can line him up at a Z sort of flanker role opposite the split end role that Michael Thomas should be coming right back to as the number 1 receiver. You could swap the 2 of them if you wanted to, and you wanted to give Michael Thomas some breathing room. Jarvis Landry fights really well through press. I think that he had about a 27% win percentage last year against the press. He was in the 24th percentile, So he had a 20.7% of his routes were run against press. He won in the terms of a success rate of 59.2%. I can tell you that's better than what most of the sort of younger guys will end up doing. He also won 75.4% of the time in zone or against zone, 60.6% against man. So pretty good success rate numbers there. Now, they're not Michael Thomas numbers, who of course was in like the 80th and higher percentile in all of those categories last time that he stepped on the field, but he does give you a little something to really be able to see how it would translate into this New Orleans Saints offense. So now let's project a little bit more forward. We know what Jarvis Landry brings you right now if you were to end up signing him. Let's talk a little bit about contract projection. Let's talk a little bit about how it is that he would also operate opposite Michael Thomas. Is there too much overlap there? Is it a redundant skill set, or does it end up changing the game for you? I think it changes the game. We'll talk about why as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market, the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, but doesn't give you all of that extra stuff that a candy bar is going to give you. So if you're somebody like me that has a big time sweet tooth, but you want to take care of yourself a little bit better, then check out Built Bar, because you're going to get that candy bar flavor, but you're only talking about 4 or 5 grams of protein, 4 or 5 grams of sugar, 4 or 5 grams of net carbs, but you're getting 17, 18 grams of protein. And these are great flavors. Mint brownie, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, both get rave reviews. Cherry barcia people love as well. And these are all covered in 100% chocolate, but you're only getting those 4 or 5 grams of sugar as opposed to a ton of sugar, right? Dozens of net carbs, a bunch of calories. You don't have to worry about any of that when it comes to Built Bar. And if you haven't tried them yet, the Built Puffs are pretty incredible too. Protein-infused marshmallow. Don't know how Built Bar did it, but they done it. So go and check them out, right? Don't just take it from me. Go and check it out yourself. Built.com. Use promo code LOCK15, LOCKED15, so you can get 15% off of your next order, whether it's your first or your next, doesn't matter. Use that promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Jarvis Landry would help the Saints if they're able to work out a contract with him. Open up Michael Thomas's game as he returns in 2022. Is there a little bit of a redundant sort of skill set here? Sure, both of them operate really well close to the line of scrimmage, but having someone like Jarvis Landry, who would be very reliable for you close to the line of scrimmage, allows you to stretch the way that you utilize Michael Thomas a bit more. Now, Michael Thomas didn't run, everybody kind of makes the slant joke and all these other things, but he didn't run a lot of slants in 2016, 2017. That wasn't really his game. But then once you got to aging quarterback declining arm strength territory of 2018 and on, then you started to see those slant routes come back in a little bit more, over 32%, I believe, over the course of those 3 years, which actually isn't that bad. I mean, you look at guys like Allen Robinson, who ran those same slant routes 31.8% of the time in 2020. Terry McLaurin, one of the top young wide receivers who's like fighting for a new contract right now, 33.1% of his routes were slant routes in that season. So I think that when you look at Michael Thomas's skill set and you look at what it is that he does, he's a bit of an all-around guy to where you can use him everywhere. I mean, reception perception has win percentages for him on fly routes at 71.4%. That's literally just running straight down the field. No angles, no changing direction, nothing. Just running straight down the field. 71.4% of the time, he was successful in those routes. He ran those routes 9.2% of the time, the same rate that he ran out routes, right? You look at post routes, which he ran 8.7% of the time, which is the same percentage of time that he ran curl routes, which are the ones where you push up field, come back toward the line of scrimmage, angling toward the quarterback as opposed to outside. His success rate on those post routes, 75%. Corner routes, the opposite of a post route, kind of like a flag route, going back toward the outside as you're pushing up field, 63.6% win percent success rate there. I mean, the guy's able to do all of it, but he hasn't really been able to operate in an offense that utilizes that very much. That's why he only ran corner routes 4.8% of the time in 2020 when he was last on the field most, right? In 2020, what he ran the most were slant routes at 29.7%. He ran out routes at 9.2%, which again is at the same rate that he ran nines, right? Those fly routes straight down the field, those vertical routes. And then 14% of the time he ran dig routes, which he won on 81.3% of the time, which is just outstanding. So yes, that's what you've seen from Michael Thomas as of late. But when you look at what Jarvis Landry does, which is what he runs most are flat routes, 15.6% of the time, slant routes, 24.1% of the time, out routes, 10.1% of the time. Those are all from 2021, just last year. He also runs dig routes at 11%. And he's got success rates of 73.1% on digs, 100% on screens, 73.7% on slant routes, and 70.8% on out routes. So those places where Michael Thomas has been utilized the most, Jarvis Landry steps into. Yes, there is a little bit of a redundant skill set there. However, because of what Michael Thomas also does with those big time success rates when it comes to corner routes, nine routes, post routes, digs, curls, flats, slants, the guy wins at everything. Then you get the opportunity to, instead of having him serve that close to the line of scrimmage role, you can utilize him a bit more away from the line of scrimmage, which is a role I'm sure Michael Thomas would be very, very happy to be able to help facilitate, and a change that I think would be very welcome for a guy like Jameis Winston, who doesn't throw a lot of interceptions down the field and is usually pretty accurate down the field. So when you look at the other piece of this, which is, well, wait a minute, Ross, Jarvis Landry runs a lot out of the slot. Michael Thomas runs a lot out of the slot. Not really. Over the course of the past 3 years, 24.8% of Michael Thomas's snaps came from the slot. 75.2% came from out wide. And on top of that, over 1,000 of that 1,800 came from the left side, while when it comes to Jarvis Landry, the majority of his outside snaps, his wide snaps, came from the right side. So these guys complement each other extremely well. You just have to sort of diversify the route tree a little bit. Now, I think if you want to maximize Jarvis Landry, utilize him in the slot, like 70+% of the time in the slot, which also helps to expand Michael Thomas's role a bit more. That's why I think that getting a guy like Jameson Williams makes a ton of sense, because once he's healthy and able to get back out on the field and you shift to a little bit more 11 personnel, you've got a ton of firepower there because you've got Michael Thomas running that X route tree, which is really just a bunch of everything. You have Jameson Williams, who runs the routes that these guys don't. 10.9% of his routes in 2021 for Alabama came on 9 routes. 11.6 were post. 12.2 were digs, and you also 20.1 of them come from the slot, coming from slant routes, and then 18.2 when it was some curl routes coming back toward the quarterback. So he runs a lot of inside breaking stuff, which you don't really see a lot from a guy like Jarvis Landry, not downfield. So then Jameson Williams gives you that extra element, the 63.6% win percentage downfield, the 73% win percentage in corner, and the 80% win percentage in post. These guys would complement each other in concert so extremely well. So for me, Michael Thomas at the X, Jameson Williams eventually at the Z, and then Jarvis Landry in the slot gives you a ton. And don't forget, you also have Taysom Hill, who you can just kind of move around all over the place. So again, signing Jarvis Landry, great for the New Orleans Saints. Better if you add another young receiver, whether it's a guy like Jameson Williams or Chris Olave, one of those speed guys that can be that Z flanker for you, and then you maximize Michael Thomas in his role. So that's my spiel. That's my pitch. Again, the mantra: sign Jarvis, draft Jameson or Olave. I'm fine with either one of them, obviously. All right, let's talk really quickly as we wrap up about contract projection. According to SpotRack, the sort of projection for a contract for Jarvis Landry is 2 years, $24 million. And remember, these are made at the beginning before free agency opens up. $12 million per year. I don't think you're getting that much money at this point in free agency. So I think really you look for a floor, right? You look for a floor in terms of the other contracts that have been signed so far this year. I think that floor is Byron Pringle's 1 year, $4.125 million contract for a guy that hasn't done a ton, but Chicago was desperate after losing Allen Robinson. I think that's your floor. So $5 to $7 million per year really feels like the range. Maybe a short-term deal. The Saints have been doing a lot of 2-year deals. That would make a lot of sense for them. So somewhere around that. Keep in mind that Marquez Valdez-Scantling signed with the Kansas City Chiefs on a 3-year, $10 million contract. It's unclear if the $10 million per year is what was too expensive for the Saints, or if the 3-year term was just too long of a commitment for New Orleans. But either way, the contract that MVS took effectively, because of the out after the first year, is a 1-year, $9 million contract. So something under $9 million, but above Byron Pringle's 4.125 makes a lot of sense for a veteran and a proven piece that can come in and immediately impact your offense, like Jarvis Landry. Okay, we were not able to get to trends and tendencies today, but it's okay. We've got 2 more episodes this week. Thursday and Friday, we'll hit all of that. Really wanted to dive and dig in here when it comes to Jarvis Landry. We'll also update you on the visit. Don't be surprised if a contract isn't signed right away, because the Saints could potentially wait to sign a guy like Jarvis Landry until after the draft to mitigate anything in terms of compensatory selections. Just a thought. So keep that in mind as well. So we'll continue to check in on all of that, look at trends and tendencies in the draft, and break down everything else you need to know around your New Orleans Saints here on Locked On Saints. Appreciate you as always. Making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go and check out that Locked On NFL Draft podcast, getting you ready. The NFL Draft almost a week away now. Eric Crocker, Ryan Tracy, getting you all set up. I appreciate you as always, making me a part of your day. For everything else that you need in between these episodes on your New Orleans Saints, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.